All right, we're going to talk about comparing character viewpoints. When we do that, we're going to answer the following questions. What is the writer's connection to the topic? What words does the writer use to describe the topic? And what can you infer about the writer's attitude? So we're going to take what we know, we're going to take what the author has told us, and we're going to put those two things together to make an inference. The following is an interview with Richard Herbert, who was 8 years old when he and his family traveled to the United States on a ship from Lebanon in 1913. Like other immigrants at the time, he had to stay on Ellis Island in New York City before they could enter the United States. Here is what he talked about. It seemed that everybody on that ship was to the front of the ship, trying to get the first look at the Statue of Liberty. Well, it was a beautiful feeling. On Ellis Island, they put a tag on you, like a tag on a bag of potatoes, and they were saying, "Keep on moving." For breakfast, they served 2 boiled eggs and biscuits and coffee or tea. The food was much better than the food I was getting growing up. Everything at Ellis Island was different from what I had seen before. Everything. There were beautiful buildings in those days, and there were people from all over the world coming to Ellis Island. Here's a picture of what children who came to Ellis Island during that time would typically have looked like. You can see that their clothes are very different. You can see that they're carrying their bag. And you see right on this boy and right here on this girl, there is a tag. Young children who came to Ellis Island were given tags to wear. It told them who they were, and I also identified what country they came from. So our writer would have been experiencing something similar to this young boy. So now we're going to take a look at this chart, and we're going to fill it out about our first character, Richard Herbert. We're going to think about what was his connection to the topic, what words did he use to describe the topic, and what can we infer about his attitude. So thinking about his connection, well, he was an 8-year-old boy. He was an immigrant from Lebanon. Oops. And he came to Ellis Island in 1913. That's his connection to this topic. He experienced it, he was there, but he was a very young child. So what kind of words did he use to describe the topic? So we can go back to his passage and we can look about what words did he use. Well, in this first paragraph, I noticed that he's saying it was a beautiful feeling, right? So I can add that to my chart. And I'm going to use quotation marks to show that I'm quoting directly from the text. I'm not going to change his words, I'm just going to use his words. He also says the food was much better than the food I was getting growing up. And I'm going to find one more detail. Everything was different from what I had seen before. He kind of talks about the beautiful buildings and people from all over the world, but we kind of already have that for it was a beautiful feeling. So I'm going to include this one because it's a little bit different. Everything on Ellis Island was different from what I had seen before. My words kind of went out of my box a little bit, so I can just select this, and I can shrink those words down a little bit so that they all fit nicely. So what can I infer about his attitude? Well, we know that he was very young, and sometimes when people are very young, they don't know a lot about the world. So when they see something new and they get very excited, right? So young children get excited about new things. So that tells us that Richard was probably excited to be on Ellis Island. It was new and it was exciting, right? So now we're going to look at a second interview. The following interview is with Mary Margaret Mullins Gordon, who was 19 when she came to Ellis Island from Ireland in 1925. Here is what she said. Then when we landed in New York, everybody was on deck. The Statue of Liberty. I heard about the Statue of Liberty when we were in school. To actually see it, I couldn't wait to write home. When I saw Ellis Island, it was a great big place. I wondered what we were all going to do there. We all had to gather our bags, and the place was crowded with people talking and crying. And we passed through some of the halls there, big open spaces there, and there were bars, and there were people behind these bars, and they were talking different languages, and I was scared to death. I thought I was going to jail. I included some pictures of what I thought Mary Margaret might have been experiencing when she came in. So she was a little bit older than Robert, who was 8, or Richard, who was 8. She was 19, so she would have been treated more like an adult. So what they did was when you came in and registered, you told them what country you were from, and that sorted you into these different cells. And each of these represents a different country of origin. So here's kind of a close-up version of that. You can see that there's bars and a gate around them, and they're really separated. They're sitting in lines. They're kind of talking to one another. But they are representing their country. So that's why they were separated, and that's why she referenced them sitting behind bars, almost like they were in jail. Mary Margaret's experience was a little bit different than Richard's, right? So what is her connection to the topic? Well, Mary is 19 years old. She's from Ireland when she comes to Ellis Island. So if we go back and look at her passage, what are some words that she uses to describe it? Well, when she's seeing the Statue of Liberty, she's pretty excited. She says, I can't wait to write home. That tells me that she's excited to write about the Statue of Liberty that she's been seeing and learning about in school, right? Couldn't wait to write home. Oops. So at the beginning, she's pretty excited, but then things kind of take a turn. We have that the place was crowded. There were halls and big open spaces. There were people behind bars. There were different languages. And she says at the very end, I was scared to death. I thought I was in jail. So her experience was dramatically different than Richard's, right? So what does that tell us? What can we infer about her attitude? Well, 19 is a lot older. So you're more treated like an adult when you're 19. Which means she wasn't treated nicely necessarily. She wasn't treated probably very kindly. She was probably sorted by her country, like the people we saw in the pictures, and sat in cells waiting to be talked to and interviewed. Would you have a very good feeling if you were sitting in an area in a cell with bars, or would you be kind of nervous? So we can tell that Mary was nervous and more scared. So when we think about their two viewpoints, we can compare them. Both of these people, Richard and Mary, both landed as immigrants on Ellis Island. But their experiences there were very different. Richard was excited because of the food. He got better food on Ellis Island than he did at home. But Mary, on the other hand, was scared because she saw people behind bars waiting, oh my goodness, and talking in different languages. And when you've been around people who talk in different languages, it kind of can make you nervous because you don't understand what they're talking about. So even though they both came to Ellis Island, even though they were both kind of young, Richard's experience was much different because he was a child versus Mary's experience because she was 19 and treated as an adult. So when we're talking about those things, we have to make sure that we're looking at the same situation from two different viewpoints. And we can compare and contrast how they are the same and how they are different.